One of our most favorite episodes of the year. It comes to you now in season 2, episode 4. Hello, everybody, and welcome to All the Sports. Matt Majinski, Rich Behan here with you today. Haven't talked to you in a while. We said we would be better with this, and we haven't to start at least through 4 episodes. But we're both a little bit busy. We both have a little bit of stuff going on. So Matt's finishing up his classes. I'm trying to find a job and stuff like that. So we're getting on the right track here. But we will wait and see what happens in those aspects of our life, and we'll tell you about that as we go on. But let's just stick to the podcast right now. Matt, hello. How are you?
I'm doing good. We've talked before. I've got my pink guava passion fruit drink from Starbucks. So
It does.
That's a shout out to Starbucks. We're not partnered with them. That's just a shout out. So I'll keep that there.
Listen, if you want to be Starbucks, hit us up, man. If you want to be partners with us, let us know. I mean, I think we produce good content here.
Yeah.
I think we're both very knowledgeable. We got to get a sponsor. If somebody can help us get us, how about we'll just say that? Let's not just limit it to Starbucks. If anybody can help us get a sponsor, let us know. All right. So like I said, NFL draft preview today. This is one of more favorite episodes to do. We did one last year, and we'll do one again this year, and we'll probably do one forever, as long as this podcast lasts, because this is a lot of fun. We obviously love football. Back in college, almost every Sunday we hung out and watched the games together. So, this is fun for us. We love doing this episode. And this year I think is just really interesting because just overall, if you look at the teams drafting in the top 10 and even further than that, I don't necessarily know if the talent in this draft is overwhelming. I don't know if it's overwhelming, but if you're drafting in the right position and you're drafting for a specific need, there's a lot of guys near the top of this board that can really help you out.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the same way that I'm feeling about this draft, is that after Trevor Lawrence, I think it really falls down to guys that might make 1 or 2 Pro Bowls in their career. There's certainly some guys on here, that they're gonna. I mean, it's not like out of these 254 picks, only one guy is going to be good. But
Right.
As far as the talent coming into draft night, it seems a little bit lower than certain years in the past. And I agree with you. I know we'll get into it a little bit deeper going forward, but I think there are some names here on the board that can certainly help some teams improve. And I think there's a lot of teams here that are picking in the top 10 that if they add some guys, they have legit shots to make a run for the playoffs.
So I think what we wanted to start with here is we wanted to take just an overall look at the draft board, and then we'll get into some other things as we go along. Also, forgot to mention this. We also have an interview. We'll break up the episode. So basically what we'll do is we'll come over about halfway through. Matt did an interview with PGA Tour champion Robert Streb. So we'll use that. We'll break up the interview a little bit. We'll break up the episode a little bit. We'll get you the interview in the middle. And then we'll come back and finish our draft coverage after that. But the thing we wanted to start with was we mentioned the talent in this draft. We wanted to take a look at the players that are absolute locks to go in the top 10. So obviously for me, I'll give a couple. For me, number 1 is going to be Trevor Lawrence. I don't think that's any question. It's been a foregone conclusion ever since the Jaguars lost whichever game it was, and then they locked up that first round pick. Basically the Trevor Lawrence to Jacksonville jersey swaps commenced right then and there. You saw about 5,000 of them on Twitter. So he's going to go number 1. And if you look at situationally now, Zach Wilson's going to go 2 to the Jets. And I'm a firm believer that before they traded Sam Darnold, and I remember I said this on the last podcast, I was a firm believer in the fact that the Jets were going to give Sam Darnold another chance. I thought that they loaded up with talent this offseason and they finally surrounded Sam with a team that could be successful. You brought in good talent. You brought in somebody who I think is going to be a good coach and has a good coaching staff in Rob Saleh. I believed in what the Jets were doing. So where the Jets were drafting, I said, okay, go and get Sewell from Oregon. Shore up that line. They already have a bunch of talent on defense. They brought in talent on offense. give Sam Darnold another chance and let him ride. And then if it doesn't work out, give up on him next offseason. But at least you can say that you gave him the chance. Now, Sam Darnold is a Carolina Panther. And now the Jets have an opening. They must have really liked what they saw from Zach Wilson. I don't know if it's going to translate. I'll be honest, I did not watch much BYU football this year, but everything I've seen and heard is that he's a pretty darn good prospect. I even saw something today that Chris Collinsworth had a hard time ranking Zach Wilson behind Trevor Lawrence, and I don't know about all that, but I did read that article today, and I was intrigued because I think Chris Collinsworth is a good talent evaluator of football. So to hear him say something like that, it really makes you wonder. Then after that, I think Sewell will go from Oregon. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm probably butchering it. He'll go 100% in the top 10. Then I started looking at wide receivers. And again, it's going to be based on positionally where these teams are going to draft. You look at Jamar Chase and Devontae Smith. Everybody knows I'm a Giants fan. If Devontae Smith falls out of the top 10 and into the Giants' lap, I think it will be a blessing from God. And if they don't take him, I don't know what they're going to do, because he really showed you this year his athletic talent. Jamar Chase was always going to be the first pick wide receiver on the board. He's just freakishly athletic. Him and Joe Burrow were quite the tandem. Sat out last year. There's really no debate for me for wide receiver one. However, when you get to Devontae Smith and what he did this year, he really showed you that, he's a tall, lanky wide receiver, but he can really go get it. And he's a big body. It can really put up those numbers. So for me, I'll stop there. Of course, you have Micah Parsons, who I think will also eventually go in the top 10, but I'll save a couple names as we go later on in the episode. So for right now, obviously, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Penei Sewell, Jamar Chase, and if Devontae Smith falls out of the top 10, I'm not too sure what we're doing.
Rich, I have all those guys on my list. I think all of those guys, starting with Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson, like you said, it's a foregone conclusion that Trevor Lawrence will be the number one pick in the NFL draft. Zach Wilson, I think it's pretty sure 95% to 99% that he's going to be a Jet on Thursday. To me, it's growing more and more likely that Mac Jones might be headed to San Francisco. It just seems to me that, again, that seems like a pretty big lock that he'd be there. And then I'm going to add one more, and Kyle Pitts. And I've just seen so much on him is that people think that he's going to be the next Gronk or something, the next great tight end. Kyle Pitts is a guy that if he gets drafted in the top 10 is going to help out a team a lot. I've heard Atlanta might be interested in him. That could be pretty interesting, especially if they decide to move on from Julio Jones and replace him with Kyle Pitts. And like you mentioned, Sewell, Jamar Chase. I want to go to Devonta Smith again, though, because I think that he is actually better than Chase. That's my take for you. Again, you know that I wasn't high on Burrow last year. He proved me wrong until his injury, unfortunately. But Smith, man, just the way that he played in that college football playoff, to me, just stood out so much.
And, you start getting to that playoff, and there's a lot of eyes on college football to begin with, but you get into the college football playoff, it's only 4 teams. People are much more inclined to watch those games. So you're getting even more viewers, and you get your eyes on Alabama. And there's so much noise with Alabama because there's so many guys that are going to be drafted. But Devontae Smith was the one that really rose above that all, because like I said, he's not undersized, but he's not as big as a wide receiver as I'd like. I'd like a little bit of a more burly wide receiver that can go up and get it. He's still that, but he gains a couple 10, 15 pounds. He's going to be a dominant wide receiver. I was also very impressed with his route running as well. So we wanted to move on now. We just wanted to talk about specific schools that really, obviously you have the Alabamas and such that are really going to excel in this draft, and you're going to hear their name called a lot. I'm not going to give you Alabama because that would obviously be too easy of an answer. I'm not going to say Alabama or Ohio State. What I am going to say is I want to say Notre Dame just because I am a Notre Dame football fan. So I'll go with Notre Dame. I think one of the most underrated linebackers in this draft is Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. He is, after watching him play all season last year, that is going to be the name that's going to fall down to about that 20th to 25th pick in the first round. But really, for me, he's a top 15 talent just because of the team's drafting in front of the needs. Obviously, the first linebacker off the board is going to be Micah Parsons. But I think there's a real debate to be made there for Owusu-Koramoah really jumping up those draft boards if teams decide they need a linebacker. And of course, with Notre Dame, you'll always get your offensive linemen coming out. So that's really where the money is made in Notre Dame. I want to say Ian Book. I really do. But the thing that's holding me back from Ian Book is he's not a very good precision passer. He's very good at moving the pocket. He has a good arm. But at the NFL level, I don't personally believe he will succeed unless he really gets after it and really works at it and fixes some of these problems that he does have. He's just not an accurate thrower of the football. And even though you have athletic route running wide receivers in the NFL, you also have extremely athletic defensive backs. So at the end of the day, I don't know if Ian Book is ever going to get the chance. But for Notre Dame, I just wanted to highlight a few of those guys.
Well, first off, I'll start with the linebacker because I've heard a lot of people saying that he might end up on the Washington football team. So I better study up on him a little bit. But I'm actually going to go. Well, first off, I'm going to nod the head to Alabama and Clemson real quick, just because of the fact that it's just purely amazing how they're going to have so many guys picked in this first and second round of the draft. It's just uncanny, and I just hope that other programs are able to keep building up and up because it's getting a little bit old now where you see the same two teams every season producing the players, and you're kind of wondering, like, what about these other 125 teams? Is the talent really that bad compared to them? But excuse me. I'm going to go. I'm dying here. I need the pink glove.
I was going to say, get the pink drink involved here. What are we doing?
There we go. I'm going to go with Northwestern. And they've got Rashawn Slater, who's ranked as the number 2 offensive lineman by ESPN, a guy that's right behind Sewell from Oregon. And then they've got Greg Newsome, a corner who people think might have first-round capability if 3 corners do go in the first round. Patrick Surtain is most likely going to be the first one off the board. And Greg Newsome has a chance to be a first-round draft pick, and if not, a real early second-round draft pick. So I'm just going to highlight the fact that Northwestern has 2 guys on both sides of the ball that are going to be real early, especially from their respective positions.
We also wanted to take a look here at first of all, everybody loves a value pick. So we want to really hammer in on some value picks that are really going to go. They're not going to go maybe in the first or second round, but as you start to get to that third, fourth round, if they slip down, that they're going to be some real value picks. And I actually have 2 names here, and I'm going to start with Joseph Osai. He's an edge rusher out of Texas. The only downside to him is that he's a bit undersized. And when you get to the NFL and you're rushing off the edge, you're going to have to deal with big, strong, tough O-linemen that are they look like they come out of a science lab. So for Osai, he's going to have to bulk up a little bit. I don't know how much more growing he's going to do. But if he's going to stick in the NFL, I really like Joseph Osai as an edge rusher a little bit later in rounds. I'm also going to give you Najee Harris, who really is not getting as much love as I think he deserves simply because he's a running back. And, you have that famed picture of Derrick Henry standing next to Najee Harris, and Derrick Henry makes him look like he's about the size of an ant. But in reality, Najee Harris is a terrific runner of the football. Again, a guy who gets lost in the shuffle because there's so many names coming out of Alabama. The way he runs the football is just outstanding. I want to tell you about his rushing grades from PFF, which is Pro Football Focus, for those of you who don't know. For his 3 years at Alabama, he has rushing grades of 91.8, 89.8, and 90.1. that is he's severely undervalued because he's a running back, but those numbers tell you that he should be starting right away for a team in the NFL. He's also one of the best receiving backs out of the backfield, which isn't lost because now a lot of passes, a lot of play calling, you like to have options. The RPO, if the running back can come out of the backfield and catch some passes, it'll always help. So for me, Najee Harris is just one of those guys who is going to get overlooked just because of the position he plays, but is going to be a huge difference maker for whatever team he lands on.
Well, Rich, I'm going to start off with one position as a whole, and I'll highlight one guy, and that's the running back position, because I think there's a lot of sleepers at this running back position. It starts with Michael Carter from North Carolina. It's a guy that I think all year in the ACC last year was a real good back. He has size. He's only 5'7", but he weighs over 200 pounds. So he's a guy that's going to be a bruiser in the NFL, and he's going to get a legitimate shot. I think Javion Hawkins on Louisville is another solid running back. Chuba Hubbard on Oklahoma State is another guy that I think will get a legit shot. The guy I wanted to highlight, though, is Jarrett Patterson, Buffalo. And we remember his name because of some of the games that he had this past season. On the year, 141 attempts for over 1,000 yards. That's over a 7.5 yards per carry average. He scored on the ground 19 times. Now, he's not a big-time receiving back. He only had 13 catches in 2019. So that's a big of an issue, is that he's just primarily a runner. But the thing is he put up those numbers, and a lot of the times he was being taken out in the second half because they'd be up so many points. So I think this is a guy that got to play all of last year, put up those stats, show what he's worth, but also got to maybe save his legs a little bit as he's going into the NFL. You know, he's going to be one of the fresher guys in there. I'm also going to stay in upstate New York. You know, I got to highlight one Cuse guy, and that's Andre Cisco. Just last night, posting a video of him returning for some football workouts on the field, and he's coming off ACL surgery. So timely post that he was able to post that 2 nights before the draft. Mel Kiper currently has him ranked as the 7th best safety in this draft. A year ago, he was projected as a possible first-round pick. ACL surgery, obviously, that's going to slow things down a little bit. But this is a guy who right now, or I guess you could say at the end of last season, before he entered his name in the NFL draft, the active leader in interceptions in the FBS. He's a guy that, yeah, he can get burned sometimes, but he makes plays on the ball. And it's almost about 6'1", 216 is what he's listed at. That's pretty good size for a safety. He does make hard hits. So I think he's a guy that someone's going to take a chance on with that ACL. And if he can stay healthy, it's going to be better value than the 7th best safety in this draft class. And then third, but totally not least, is Kellen Mond, who I think is the 4th best quarterback in this draft class. I think he's better than Mac Jones, who might even go 3rd overall. I think that Kellen Mond has great size at 6'3", 217. He can get out of the pocket. He can make accurate throws. 19 touchdowns to 3 picks is practically impossible in that SEC. And he did it again versus North Carolina in that bowl game. 16 of 26. It was one of his maybe lesser games. That North Carolina defense was great all season long. It was one of the best in the ACC. And then we look at what he did against Alabama. 3 touchdowns, over 300 yards. So he's a guy that he's a gamer. He can play against some of the best defense in college football. Can he line up in the NFL? I don't know why he's listed so low right now, because I think Kellen Mond is a dangerous quarterback and is going to be a steal.
We're going to go through now the top 10 teams that are picking here in this draft, and we're going to go 1 through 10. I'll do the odd numbers if you want to handle the even numbers, Matt. And what we're going to do is we're just going to go by position of what we think is going to happen there with the first 10 picks. We'll reserve the names for when we come back from break, and we'll go through our mock drafts of the top 10. And of course, I will give you pick 11 because the Giants are picking 11, and I'm a Giants fan. So we'll see how it all shakes out there. So I'll start with number 1, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Quarterback, you go ahead. It's sometimes it's that simple.
It's Trevor Lawrence.
Exactly. So number 2 in the Jets, go ahead.
So number 2 in the Jets, just me or you?
That is you.
Okay, so number 2 on the Jets, I have Zach Wilson.
So all right, so let's go number 3. San Francisco 49ers. Again, I'm not going to tell you who I think they pick because we're going to reserve that for a little bit later. But I'm going to tell you they're going to pick a quarterback. And the quarterback I have them picking might shock you a little bit. I'll leave it at that. I'll give you a little teaser, and we'll go to number 4 with Matt.
Number 4, the Atlanta Falcons. I think this is one that could go all over the place. The Falcons clearly need a lot. I think they need to advance their defense a little bit, but I'm going to go with someone on the offensive side of the ball that can help out Matt Ryan.
We'll go to number 5 in the Cincinnati Bengals. You want to help out the quarterback on the Falcons. I would like to help out the quarterback on the Bengals. I say wide receiver there. Number 6 in the Dolphins.
Yeah, the Dolphins right now, I'm actually sticking with what you just said for number 5. I think a wide receiver makes perfect sense for the Dolphins. They've got to keep pace in the AFC East. They have the best team on paper to do it. So if they can get a top-notch wideout, that's surely going to help.
We'll go to 7 and the Detroit Lions now with a new quarterback in place. I think they're going to try and help him. I'll go wide receiver for the Lions, and we'll turn it over to number 8.
The Carolina Panthers, who just got rid of a quarterback. Do they go with a quarterback here? I don't think so. I actually have a cornerback going to the Panthers.
We'll go to 9 in the Broncos, who just got Teddy Two Gloves via a trade. I want to go off on a little bit of tangent here because I think Teddy Bridgewater is severely undervalued. And ever since his knee injury, he's never been the same. I want to say that. But now with the Broncos picking 9th, they've solved their quarterback problem. Teddy Bridgewater is going to be a steady hand in that locker room. And I think he's going to do wonders for this Broncos offense. I want to see how the coaching staff is going to use him because that's always going to be an interesting play. But I actually had the Broncos picking a quarterback. They're obviously not going to do that because they're going to go with Teddy, hopefully for a few years, because he deserves to stay in one place and he deserves to really build a franchise. So no more quarterback for the Broncos. Let's say somebody on the defensive side of the ball. Well, I'll regroup and try and figure out who that is, but we'll leave it off at 10.
And 10 is the Dallas Cowboys, who they've got enough offense. I don't think they need to do anything to boost that offense, especially if it can stay healthy. The defensive side and the second corner of this draft comes off the board.
All right, so those are the top 10 picks and the needs for the teams picking in the top 10. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to get to that interview now with Matt. So we'll step aside. You're either listening to Hall the Sports on SoundCloud or you're watching us on YouTube. Don't go anywhere. We'll take a quick break, come back with the interview, and then we'll be back to finish up our draft coverage.
Welcome back to Hall of Sports. We have a special guest with us today. It's champion on the PGA Tour, a golfer, Robert Streb. Robert, thanks for joining me here today.
Yeah, Matt, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You know, we don't have too much time, but I'm going to start off with last week, coming off the Zurich Classic in New Orleans. And, you know, it's a 2-player event. And I know that's obviously different from practically every other tournament on the PGA Tour. How do you like having a different formatted event like that on the calendar?
It's fun. It kind of breaks up the monotony. You get to do something a little different. I don't know what it's quite like from a fan perspective, but I think a lot of the players enjoy just breaking it up a little bit and going to play golf with their friend.
You talk about that fan perspective. Obviously, last season, there were no fans on the PGA Tour. Do you think it's getting a little bit more back to normal?
Yeah, once we got off the West Coast, the West Coast was pretty locked down, but once we got over here, there's people, it gets rowdy from time to time, but it's still a little small, but it's a whole lot better than nothing.
You know, you're a 2-time winner on tour, the McGladrey Classic in 2014, and then the renamed RSM this past November. How did it feel, though, holding up that first trophy?
It was really cool. It was a pretty big deal. I've been playing okay, but didn't really expect that one, and it was a pretty big deal too because it got me through year 5 on the PGA Tour, which means you can collect your pension. So that was pretty neat.
And then obviously, the renamed RSM able to repeat 6 years later and win that event for the second time. What's that like, not knowing if you're ever going to win on tour? The first time so tough, and then being able to accomplish that a second time.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Obviously I hadn't had a lot of success the last few years, just kind of seemed to be hanging on by a thread. So it was a little unexpected, but it was really cool to know that you can still pull it off.
Are you looking forward to maybe another three-peat this next November?
Yeah, that'd be nice. We'll see what happens.
Before that, you're easily on pace for multiple events at this year's FedEx Cup playoffs. How excited are you for that tournament?
Yeah, it's been a while since I've been there, so really looking forward to it. Hopefully I can get a few more good tournaments under my belt before we get there. Getting a little better spot, but it's always nice to be there and get to play those events at the end.
How's that like? I mean, being there at this kind of playoff event where you got the world's best golfers for 3 straight weeks.
It's cool. It's a tough test. You got all the best fields 3 weeks in a row, and it's I guess a little grueling, but it's 3 weeks isn't bad, and it's the courses are usually great, and it's it's fun to see how you stack up.
Robert, thanks again for joining us on Hall the Sports. I know the PGA Tour recently announced that new $40 million incentive-based program, a lot of other stuff to go along with that. I wanted to get your thoughts on everything about that.
Yeah, I think they're just, I guess, trying to reward the guys that they get a lot of exposure from, the guys that are on the TV all the time, and obviously being searched on the internet and other things like that. So I think it was a bit of an incentive for the guys that they're making a lot of money off of.
Awesome. Again, thanks for joining us here. Before I let you go, though, this is kind of our NFL draft podcast. Do you follow the NFL at all?
Yes, but I'm going to guess probably not as close as you do.
I wanted to know what your team was and if you even have any choice on maybe even what position you'd like them to draft.
I am a Steelers fan. I ended up liking them. Kid across the street liked them growing up. So I don't know. I think they're in a bit of hurt for now. Might be a couple of years before they're any good again. But and then living in Kansas City, obviously you watch a lot of the Chiefs, which has been pretty entertaining.
That's awesome. Well, enjoy the draft if you're going to watch it this weekend, and enjoy your time on the course. I'll make sure you get back out there right now.
All right. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Back here on Hall the Sports, Rich Behan, Matt Majitsky with you. And now, if you listen to the first half of the show, we kind of got all the details out of the way. Now we're going to really drill down into the top 10 of this draft and maybe a little bit beyond. Matt, I'm actually going to hand it over to you first. I want to hear your mock draft, your mock 10, your top 10 first, and then I'll do mine. And then we have some fan questions at the end to wrap up this episode. But why don't you kick us off here with your mock draft?
Yeah. So again, number 1 and 2, I think are pretty simple, but Trevor Lawrence is going to be the first pick overall in this draft by the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's just, again, a foregone conclusion to this point. And number 2 with the Jets seems just as much as a sure bet that it's going to be Zach Wilson from BYU, heading from BYU to New York. So that'll be the interesting fit for Zach Wilson and the Jets. We move on to San Francisco, and that's where I have Mac Jones, a third straight quarterback going. So I don't agree with the pick. I'm going to be harsh here. I don't think he's good enough to be that pick. I don't think that Mac Jones is good enough to be ranked that high. I don't even see him as a first-round talent. I'm going to put that out there right now. But Mac Jones is going to be the third pick in the draft. Fourth pick is the Atlanta Falcons. And this is one of the ones I struggled with because I really think their defense needs to be picked up. But a lot of people seem to think that the Falcons might go offense. They might try to replace Julio Jones. Let's see if they trade him. I have Kyle Pitts from Florida staying in the South and going to Atlanta with the 4th overall pick of the NFL draft. Moving on to Cincinnati, Again, gonna mess this name up, but Joe Burrow needs an offensive lineman, so that's where Penei Sewell is going to land in Cincinnati. Again, other people might say that they go a different route. Do they try to get Jamar Chase and pair him up with Joe Burrow? I think the offensive line is more important, and I think they get that. But that means that Jamar Chase holds on for the Miami Dolphins, because that's who I have picking number 6 is the Dolphins picking Jamar Chase. I don't think that he's the best wideout in this draft. I think that that's the best fit, and it seems like the Dolphins have been linked to Jamar Chase from what I've heard. Number 7, the Detroit Lions. That's where Devontae Smith goes, and that is the steal of the draft because he is by far the best player in this draft besides Trevor Lawrence. Rich, this is my take right now. Just step aside for real quick.
Okay.
In the NBA, in the past couple of years, it's been apparent that you need three-point shooters to win. In the NFL, it's becoming that with wide receivers. No longer can you have one wide receiver to help you win. You need 2 or 3. And the Lions need a wideout to help them to win. And Devontae Smith is going to be that guy for years to come. That's why we're going to see a lot of wideouts going off the board in the first round. We saw it last year. Look at all these wideouts that made big jumps last season after being drafted and as rookies. Just real impressive all across the board. It's going to be the same this year. Number 8 with the Panthers. Again, just trading Bridgewater. I'm sticking with Patrick Surtain going to the Carolina Panthers. They need a corner, and I think that's where they go. Number 9, the Denver Broncos. I've actually got to change this now because originally, before everything happened today, I had Justin Fields going to the Denver Broncos. Now I'm going to go with an offensive lineman. I mentioned him earlier in Rashawn Slater from Northwestern. I think that Denver, you get that quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater. Now you got to go get the offensive lineman. I said how Cincinnati does that. I think they do that the same with Slater. And then the 10th pick, going to the Dallas Cowboys, I have J.C. Horn. I haven't seen much on him, but the Cowboys need a corner, and he seems like the next best available. So that's where I'll end off. I know that you're going on more with the Giants, but I don't have that prepped.
That is quite, I kind of threw that at you last minute. I figured I would do that on my own anyway. All right, so I will go with mine here, and of course the Jacksonville Jaguars number 1 is going to be Trevor Lawrence. There's no question, and number 2 is going to be Zach Wilson. Kind of like how you were saying, Matt. I don't know if that's the right decision. I really don't. I haven't watched enough of him. I haven't heard enough about him. I know he had a stellar year last year, but the Jets. My thing here. If you look at this, if you step back and look at this from a Jets fan perspective, how many times are they going to get it wrong at the quarterback position? You hear people talk about it all the time. In football, you need to get 3 things right off the bat to even be competitive. Your general manager, your head coach, and your quarterback. You need to get those 3 right. If you don't, you're going to be mediocre for years to come. Joe Douglas seems like the right answer. Robert Saleh, I said before, I alluded to it before, I think he will be the right answer at head coach. You have 2 check marks. You needed to go with something as Matt just decides to cough again. Are you all right, buddy?
I am.
The allergies,
allergies
getting to you?
I am all right. It just, man.
It's allergy season, man.
It is.
It's killing me. It's 80 degrees out here today. You need to get those 3 right. Joe Douglas, I think, is right. Robert Saleh, I think, is right. And now he's coughing on mute, man. Pull it together, my boy. Now he's taking himself off the screen. All right, I got to focus here. You needed to go with something that was a sure thing. Mark Sanchez looked like he could have been the answer and needed to be shipped out. Then they had a mediocre quarterbacks. Then you got Sam Darnold. You thought that was going to be the answer. I still think they're giving up way too early on Sam Darnold. I think he's going to go kill it in that offensive scheme in Carolina. We'll have to wait and see. But now they're going to go on the quarterback carousel for Zach Wilson. I'm not a Jets fan, but I don't root against the Jets. I have a lot of friends who are Jets fans. I really hope that they get this right. I do, because Jets fans have been suffering for a really long time. So I truly hope and believe that Zach Wilson is the right answer for the Jets at 2. This is going to be my surprise pick here for number 3, the San Francisco 49ers. I do have them taking a quarterback. It is not Mac Jones. It is not Justin Fields. I think at number 3, they're going to pick Trey Lance. That's a shock. I know. That is a shock. As you could see, if you're watching on YouTube, Matt Majitsky's face here. Listen, I'm not sold on Mac Jones. I know a lot of people are. I'm not one of those people. I will say until the playoff last year, I wasn't really sold on Justin Fields. Ohio State had 2 games during the regular season that were, I deemed, hard. Justin Fields didn't really play well in either of them. Don't get me wrong. When he got to the playoff, he shined out and he balled out, and I'm happy for him. But I can't wrap my head around the Justin Fields being that guy. When I look at Trey Lance, I know it's not the same matter of football that obviously Justin Fields was playing, but this kid has a rocket arm. He can move the pocket. He only played 1 game last year, so that means he's fresh. You didn't get to see him a lot. But if you're the 49ers, I need somebody to come in and jolt it alive, because Kyle Shanahan's a good coach. I don't care what anybody says. He's a dang good coach. He just needs somebody to come in there and light everything up. 49ers had a lot of injuries last year. I think they're going to be back in full force this year. But if you want somebody to come in and really light up a room, I think Trey Lance is going to be that guy. And if you get him in that Kyle Shanahan system and you really let him run free, I mean, listen, Kyle Shanahan's a guy that made it to a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. So if you give him somebody that's got elite arm strength and can move the pocket in the modern day NFL, I think the sky's the limit for this 49ers team. Number 4, here's another prediction for you. I don't think Julio Jones is going to be on this team to start the season. I don't know where he's going to go, but I do not believe he will be there. That's why at number 4, I actually believe that the Falcons are going to jump and take Devontae Smith at 4. I think they will take him over Jamar Chase because they're going to have to replace Julio Jones, and I think Devontae Smith can be that guy to come in and do it. Number 5, I have the Bengals. I don't know if I'm just doing this for the storyline. If the Falcons do go wide receiver, they'll probably take Jamar Chase. But I would like to see Jamar Chase back with Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. So that's where I have Jamar Chase going off the board at 5. At 6, the Miami Dolphins is such a curious case because as time goes on, and not much time has passed realistically, I think people are starting to doubt if Tua is the answer. I really do. They're going to give him some time. I think they'll give him more leash than the Jets gave Sam Darnold. But as you sit here, yes, do they need a playmaker? Yes, do they need help on the defense? They don't need help on the defensive side, but it's always good to add to your defense. This is where I think Sewell will go from Oregon. Really give Tua protection on that line so he can do what Tua does. He's not going to throw the ball deep down the field, but he'll be accurate in doing it, short passes at least, and give him some space to run out of the pocket. Sewell gives him that protection. Miami gets him at 6. The curious case of the Detroit Lions at 7. I don't really know what's going on here because you move on from Matthew Stafford, which was the best thing you have had going for your franchise in quite some time. From Stafford's perspective, I love it. Get him to LA, get him in that system that McVay has. I love it for Stafford. I'm confused at it for the Lions. I don't really know how Jared Goff is going to fit in with this, and I really don't know where the Lions are going to go. But for the purpose of this exercise, I will say that this is where Micah Parsons comes off the board. I don't necessarily know if Detroit needs a linebacker, but if you want to take from the perspective of best player available, that's what I'll do. And that's where I have him going at 7. 8 with the Panthers. Again, this is a team that doesn't need a quarterback anymore. So now where do you go? Do you go defensive back? Do you go wide receiver? I'll say they go defensive back. This is where I think Patrick Surtain comes off the board. Him at 8. Number 9, Denver Broncos. Had them picking a quarterback. Now they have one. They could still shock the world and pick another quarterback. I think Teddy only has about a year left on his deal. So I'm actually just going to stick with it. I'll say this is where Justin Fields goes at 9. If you put Teddy and Justin Fields in a room together, in a quarterback room together and let Justin Fields sit there and learn for a year, I think he's going to learn a lot from a guy like Teddy Bridgewater. They have similar playing styles. I think that's going to be a really good pairing. I'll stick them together at 9. At number 10, you had J.C. Horn to the Dallas Cowboys. I also have that just because for the simple fact that Surtain is off the board for me. Dallas Cowboys need help in the secondary. They've needed help for a few years, so they'll get it here. And at 11, my New York Giants. Man, I was really hoping Devontae Smith would be here. But boy, I see Kyle Pitts on the board, baby. Get Evan. I will. Okay. Let me relax for a second. Just to set the scene, I got a car for graduation. Okay. So I love driving it. I love driving. I'm about 20 minutes away from Newark Airport. I'm about 35 minutes away from MetLife Stadium. This is a message to the New York Football Giants. If you find a trade for Evan Engram, I will personally drive to MetLife Stadium, pick him up, put his bags in my car, drive him to Newark Airport, and I will personally escort him onto the plane. I will be his personal security through the airport, and I will escort him onto the plane and watch it take off and wave as it leaves. I can't do it anymore. This is pathetic. The guy can't catch. The one thing he was, listen, when the Giants picked Evan Engram, the thing was, he's an elite pass catcher. Where did that go? It's gone. That was the only thing he had. He wasn't a good blocker. He wasn't a good, really coming out and doing things like route running. He wasn't that great of a route runner. He could just catch the ball really well. Well, now he can't even do that. So get out, dude. I can't watch you play anymore. Giants need to find a trade for him. And if they do, and if it's before the time they pick, and Kyle Pitts is still on the board at 11, I would be foaming at the mouth if I was Dave Gettleman. I don't know if it's going to happen, but one can pray. And that's it. I'm going to leave it at that.
Wow. That's impressive. That's a lot to take in. If Kyle Pitts goes to New York, I'm going to be afraid because, we have that NFC East battle going on, and I don't want to face Kyle Pitts twice a year. That'd be something else.
And if that happens, there's no more excuses for Daniel Jones.
That's true.
Put up or shut up time. Saquon's coming back. You'll have Kyle Pitts as a weapon. Sterling Shepard. Escaping my head. Wide receiver from Auburn. Darius Slayton.
You've
got a lot of playmakers.
Yeah.
So
the last test.
That's it. That's all we're going to do here. But we do have some fan questions. We want to get to those now. If there are any questions you guys ever have on the podcast, shoot it to us. At us. Don't at Hall of the Sports, because I don't know if we have that back yet. That is a question from Mr. Majinski. I don't know if we have access back yet. So just at us. Don't at Hall of the Sports, because we won't see it. So, first question, not really a question, but it comes from Blaine Spencer, host of the Final Whistle podcast. We've been on his podcast a few times. Loved having him. Love talking to him all the time. So he said, Washington better not trade up for a quarterback. And I will leave that to you, Mr. Majinski, because you had some strong thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't think Washington should trade up for a quarterback. I think that if Kellen Mond's available in late rounds, I'd be sure happy with that. But the two best quarterbacks, or the best quarterback and the only real great quarterback in this draft, is off the board at number 1. Zach Wilson's gone. And after Zach Wilson, look, this is just my thought process that Blaine's probably having as well. I've voiced my displeasure for Mac Jones. The Washington football team has a knack for drafting Alabama defensive players in the first round of a lot of the last drafts. That whole defense is made up of Alabama. Let's not move that to the offensive talent side of the ball, because if it starts with Mac Jones, then there's going to be a lot of finger pointing going on in that organization saying, who let this happen? Because Mac Jones on the Washington football team would not be a good time. We've got that quarterback in Ryan Fitzpatrick for this season. There's not another quarterback in this entire draft other than Trevor Lawrence that's worth going for. And the Jags aren't giving up. They're not giving anything up to give Trevor Lawrence to anyone else. I mean, that's done. That is 155%. That is whatever number. Googleplex, I don't even know what you want to use. That's done. Mac Jones to Washington would be bad. I don't really see any other quarterback they would trade up for, but you never know because they're not afraid to make moves like that. They thought that they had it in Dwayne Haskins. I remember I laughed at you when you picked Daniel Jones. Yep. I think now we're both laughing at each other and maybe crying a little bit. But let's not start with Mac Jones this year. They can hold on a year.
Well, you don't want Mac Jones to Washington. Our next question comes from Jacob Lawrence, who says, is it a mistake for the 49ers to take Mac Jones? And I think from my mock draft that I just gave you, that answer would be yes. Listen, I don't think I've said this yet, this podcast. So let's just get this out of the way. Other than Trevor Lawrence, every other quarterback is a question mark. I don't think anybody should reach for a quarterback in this draft unless you are dead set on your guy, like the Jets are with Zach Wilson. There's question marks with him. He only really put up great numbers for 1 year. Mac Jones sat behind Tua for a while. You look at him, he's not a great NFL body. He can't really move the pocket. Is he a good thrower of the football? I'll say he's a decent thrower of the football, but I don't think he's in a good or elite program yet. Justin Fields, had that injury in the college football playoff. You don't know how he's coming back from that. He played through it and played well, but who knows there? There's just so many question marks for the quarterbacks under Trevor Lawrence. You shouldn't reach for anybody. And if the 49ers, listen, the 49ers could be in that same boat as the Jets. It's just more publicized that the Jets love Zach Wilson. Listen, maybe the 49ers do love Mac Jones and they're going to make it work. But kind of as I said before, I don't see what Mac Jones can give you that Jimmy Garoppolo can't. However, I do see what Trey Lance can give you that Jimmy Garoppolo can't. So when you look at it in that fashion and you pick Mac Jones, if you're the San Francisco 49ers, it's like having a bale of apples and then going to the store and buying more apples. It doesn't really make much sense.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. I mean, I think you answered it right there is the fact that if San Francisco decides to go with Mac Jones, you're pretty much just hopping on this train of, the Jags they need a player really bad, and they're going with Trevor Lawrence. And wait, the Jets took a quarterback, and we don't really know what to do. So why don't we take a quarterback? Because we know you need a quarterback to win. No. Take the best player available. And I'll tell you right now, it's not Mac Jones. I can name about 30 other players that it could be that would probably help out your team a lot more than Mac Jones will.
That will do it here for our 2021 NFL draft preview. We had it all for you here this episode, honestly. We had bold takes. We had pink drinks. We had Matt Majinski coughing up a storm. I'm trying to drive players to the airport. We're trying to get sponsorships here. Listen, we're just trying to make it work. So if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you. We appreciate it. If you're listening to us on SoundCloud, we appreciate that as well. Hope you enjoyed the interview as well. We hope to be mixing in a little bit more of that as we go on here. And of course, we'll be back with a draft review and we'll see how bad we butchered our preview. So we will come back and we will do that. We'll also, as we get into the summer, start talking about more baseball. And as we go on, we'll start we'll mix in some few other things. So we say thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And we will be back with you after the draft. Enjoy it Thursday night. Enjoy the other rounds if you watch them. And we'll talk to you next time here on Hold the Sports.